Hello, good morning. Once again, I'm here to introduce the main speaker for this session of this program. Once again, before I introduce, there are a lot of guys standing out there. We wish you come in and then join us. Please, there are seats here reserved for you. So come in and join us, and after that, you can go campaigning for the election that will be held tomorrow. This morning, we have a very special guest of honor to speak on a very thorny issue that we are facing in the whole world today. And he's no mean person than the Chancellor of Perez University College. He's in the person of Most Reverend Dr. Charles Agyinasare. Let's welcome him with a clap.
Presidents and rectors of university colleges in Ghana who are present at this gathering, registrars and administrators, members of convocation, executives of Pusag, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm supposed to speak on the subject education in emergencies, the role of private institutions. But I want to say that I deem it a great honor to be invited to deliver this keynote address. I have been associated with private tertiary education in this country for some time now, having been a council member for All Nations University when it was a university college, and Central University College till it was chartered as a full-fledged university. I led Perez Chapel International, where I'm the presiding bishop, to acquire Pan-African Christian University College and transform it into Perez University College, where you've all assembled today. I therefore come into today's conversation not only as a bishop, but also as someone who has some understanding of the emerging trends in private tertiary education in Ghana. Recent events across the globe, especially the COVID-19 pandemic, with its devastating consequences, has called to question the ways in which we have done things in the past. The deadly pandemic has affected all spheres of human life, and education was not spared. Indeed, the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic has created challenges and opportunities for institutions of higher learning globally and for private tertiary institutions in Ghana in particular. Both global and national response to the existential threats of the pandemic, seen in lockdowns and social distancing protocols, have called for new and innovative ways of leadership, management, and teaching and learning in private tertiary institutions in Ghana. According to the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, GTEC, there are more private universities currently in Ghana, and their numbers continue to increase more than the public universities. For example, as of May 20, 2021, there were 114 accredited private universities in Ghana, out of which 7 are chartered. The statistics indicate that private universities are gradually becoming a formidable strand of tertiary education in Ghana. Some of them are doing extremely well, while others are still budding and in their formative stages. Out of the 114 private universities, 71 belong to the Private University Students Association of Ghana, Pusag. Let's try and get all of them on board. Ghana had its first confirmed COVID-19 cases on March 12, 2020. Consequently, His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo announced the suspension of all schools and social gatherings in Ghana on Sunday night of March 15, 2020. The decision to suspend lectures was to take effect on March 16, 2020. Following the announcement for the suspension of lectures and all public gatherings, many universities in Ghana issued an official communique to affirm the directives of the president and guidelines for teaching, learning, and research during the pandemic period. The universities emphasized strict observance of the presidential directives and adopted software for distant education to facilitate student-lecturer interactions. The situation became very serious due to the fact that many private universities prior to the pandemic had no distance learning strategies to effectively engage students and lecturers to continue teaching, learning, and research. Although few private universities engage online services for distance education, these institutions were taken completely off guard during the pandemic or the emergency. For example, the Accra Institute of Technology, AIT, suspended physical contact lectures and assured lecturers and students that the institution was working to adapt and activate online platforms for teaching and learning. Although AIT is well known for the use of technology to interact between lecturers and students, it was not a straightforward phenomenon for them to migrate all student-lecturer interactions to online immediately. All Nations University, ANU, also suspended lectures to adopt distance education. There was official communication to all ANU lecturers and students to the effect that despite the suspension of classes, the university was not closed and that they were working to develop online and distance learning platforms for students to access lectures and other learning methods. Ladies and gentlemen, the pressure to swiftly develop online and distance education modes became very critical so that private universities would not lose students to foreign universities that already have the capacity for online and distance education. Even private universities that have established pandemic emergency policies would have to go through challenging times before they could get adjusted to the situation. It is commendable that private universities in Ghana affirmed and immediately suspended teaching and learning according to the presidential directive. However, since many of the private universities were not actively using ICT for distance teaching, learning, and research, critical challenges were inevitable. Distance education is not new in the educational history of Ghana. It was first used in 1982 when the then government gave approval for the Ministry of Education to organize the Modular Teacher Training Program, MTTP, for untrained teachers to earn Teacher Certificate A. This distance education was delivered by mail, postal box, or correspondence. The main objective of online and distance education is to meet the needs of workers and other mature students who have very limited time for physical participation in lecture, theater, or halls and are willing to study from the comfort of their homes. However, the objective of online and distance education during pandemic periods is to control the spread of the disease. Hence, full-time regular students are being compelled to study from various locations other than lecture or theater halls. It implies that the majority, if not all students in the private universities become distant students during emergencies. Studies by Agyinasare and Nsowa Nuyama have suggested that less than 2% of the population of distant students in Ghana are in private universities. In the midst of the pandemic, the obvious option is online and distance education and in emergencies. This comes with the challenge of which mode of online distance education should be adopted, taking into account facilities, cost, and personnel. 3 modes of distance education have been identified. 1, the online e-learning. 2, the online m-learning. And 3, the blended learning model. online e-learning is a concept that has been embraced by universities that have separate accreditation and a separate accreditation for online e-learning. The universities that run both streams of programs are referred to as dual purposeful universities. Computer laboratories are located at vantage venues where students go to either download or sometimes have real-time or online interaction with lecturers. An example is Central University, that has accreditation to run 3 undergraduate programs through distance learning, or online e-learning. When schools and universities were shut down by the government because of the pandemic, most of the private universities and almost all the public universities did not have the capacity to quickly move to offer classes online. So most of them suspended classes entirely. However, some few private universities continued classes even after the announcement by government because they already had the online teaching capacity. It was for this reason that most of them were able to pay salaries. The National Accreditation Board and the National Council for Tertiary Education were issuing conflicting instructions as to what was required to be done. The first instruction came from the National Council for Tertiary Education, then later the National Accreditation Board came in with its own directive to all tertiary institutions in the country to submit information on the tools, capacity, and personnel being deployed by the universities for the online teaching. The directive was that all teaching must be suspended until further notice. The directive at the time did not resonate well with many because the private universities needed to raise money to pay staff. So some of them ignored the directive and continued the online teaching. The agitation made by almost all sections of the students regarding cost of data and poor access to internet connectivity services was a major challenge to both public and private universities. But some private universities were ahead of some public universities in handling this challenge. For example, Perez University College contracted Airtel Tigo to supply data for lecturers and students to facilitate teaching and learning. The cost of data was paid by Perez University College, and proficiency training was organized for both students and lecturers concerning how to use the software adopted for teaching and learning during the pandemic. Whereas the government paid the salaries of the staff of the public universities, the private universities were left to fend for themselves. At the time, it had issued instructions for classes to stop. The government announced the provision of connectivity facilities to all public universities and the pre-tertiary government institutions. The private universities were left out, mindful of the high cost of internet connectivity and ICT infrastructure. How were the struggling private universities expected to meet this challenge? Beloved, the need to train faculty to be able to handle the online mode of teaching is a global challenge. Some teaching staff in the advanced countries as well as developing ones, such as Ghana, all had to adjust. This was a challenge faced not only in Ghana or institutions in Africa, but a global challenge. The way forward. Number one, the need for adequate investment in both infrastructure and personnel. 2, adequate training because the new normal which the pandemic has brought into the delivery of education will not go away even after the pandemic. 3, the government's provision of free internet connectivity facilities must be extended to the private universities as well. 4, the leadership of private universities need to adopt the Joseph leadership theory that prepares for emergencies such as the COVID-19 pandemic. Emergency and business continuity plans would have to be promulgated and resources mobilized to make it effective and activated during emergencies and pandemics. 5, government should, as a matter of urgency, aim at ensuring reliable supply of energy and internet service to parts of the country that are in short supply. Precious ones, thank you for your attention. God bless the Private University Students Association, PUSAG. God bless our homeland, Ghana, and make us great and strong. Amen.
You can do it better. You can do better. You can do better than that. We thank the Chancellor for such a wonderful speech delivered unto us. We would like to take some few questions. So if you have a question, you can come and queue either in the middle row here, not in front here. And then we'll take some few questions. The Chancellor will take about 2 or 3 questions. So first come first. If you have a question, just lift up your hand and then the microphone will be given to you before the President of PUSAG will come and officially thank the Chancellor for the speech. Any question, any issue or contribution? Okay then, thank you very much. Come for the microphone.
Right. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Fafano Charles from All Nations University. The Vice Chancellor, please, I would like to know, over the period, the argument of the government agencies or government institutions concerning private universities is that, one, private universities are private-owned enterprises that make money for individuals, right? So then the government cannot come in to support initiatives by private people who make their own money. Do you think that the time has come for government to come in assistance? Or you think the argument of saying that private institutions or those who own those institutions should still continue supporting their own institutions since they make profits for themselves and those profits does not go into the coffers of the government? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you have any other question, or we ask the Chancellor to answer this while you prepare to ask your question? So, Chancellor, over to you.
Yes, I think that the idea that private universities are out to make profit, it's a bit somehow. For most private universities that I know in Ghana, not much profit is made because if you look at the student intake and the infrastructure that has to be put in place and the lecturers that must be paid, in the end you discover that profit is not being made. In fact, majority of the private universities are in debt because they have taken loans from banks to build facilities, and the interest on those facilities are so high. Don't also forget that private universities have not been around for so long, and so they haven't even gotten into the mode of making profit yet. And so when the idea, or when people always suggest that private universities, because it's a private initiative, is out there to make money, from the facts on the ground, it is not so. If you follow the news over the years, you will discover that even church-owned private universities at times even get into places where they find themselves in debt because they have to take loans from the banks to build facilities. Those that are not church-owned, you will see that there comes times when some are even in the news, they are taken to court because they have to find a way of paying for the bills. I think that the effort the private universities are making, or the private initiatives are making, to make sure that they mop up the number of people who have come out of our secondary schools and will not gain admission in the government institutions should be appreciated by government, and government give the same or some of the facilities they give by Get Fund and other things to the private universities, so that the private universities will be in a position to be able to function better.
You can clap better. You can clap better. Thank you very much, Chancellor, for such an answer. Any question? If you have a question, just yes, my brother, come and then. After this gentleman, we'll take last one, and then we'll move on from there. You mention your name, your institution, and then you ask your question.
Thank you for the opportunity, the Chancellor. My name is Reynolds Agyinasare from EPUC, a Pusag presidential aspirant anyway. Please, I want to ask the Chancellor, what is his advice to the private universities to reduce the burden of the pressure they put on only the fees they take from university students? Because it looks as if most or all the university or private universities depend solely on the fees that the students pay. What is his advice to the private universities so that even when students do not pay fees, the university itself will be self-sustaining for some time? How resilient is the economy of the university? So what is his advice to these private universities?
Okay. Thank you very much. So the Chancellor will take this question. So the last person to ask the question should get ready. Over to you, Chancellor.
I believe that with time, the private universities will find other forms of investments to help with the institution. But currently, as it is, even as a nation, we notice that even our GDP, we are always running in a deficit. Our budget is running, we need deficit financing for our budget. What it simply means is that our resources as a people is not enough. And for, like I said, with private universities, we've not been too long on the scene, or it's not been so many years on the scene. Years ago, I was privileged to go visit Harvard University and then Yale University. I wanted to see how they started out as Christian universities, in fact, as seminaries, and ended up today becoming so secular that some of them don't even have Christian religious studies being taught in the schools. And I discovered that even in America, in fact, Oxford also in the UK started as a Christian seminary, Cambridge the same. I discovered that most of them with time come to a place where sustaining the finances of the university becomes a problem, and so they open it up and allow investors to come in, and when the investors come in, he who gives the money determines how it should be used. And so people come in who don't even believe in the original vision of that private university, and so it becomes something else. I want to say that they should give us a little time. Private universities should be given a little time, and people will be amazed to see, because the fact that there could be a private university means that the founders of it are entrepreneurial. And being entrepreneurial, it means that they will be able to generate ideas outside the box to help sustain the universities. They should give private universities a little time, and they will see what will happen.
Thank you very much, Chancellor. They should give us a little time, and you will see what will happen. There are two hands up. Yes, come. And the gentleman at the back. Anyone? Okay, so we'll take these two, and that will be That will be all for the questions and answers. So you mentioned your name, your institution. I once again appeal to those outside and around Block A. I can see students at Block A and outside. Please come in. We have seats reserved here for you. You can campaign even here. This is the best ground to campaign. So please come in and take your seat. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Desmoni Ama Olenu, a student of Wisconsin International University and also a presidential aspirant. I want to ask the Chancellor a question. Our numbers in our institution, private institutions, are going down. So what are they doing? I mean, the missionary schools, what are they doing to make sure that our numbers go up? We have our churches, but some youth are going to the public universities. But we have our own, that is the private universities. So what are the church doing to help private universities enrollment to shoot up? That's my question.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure that...
I think so far we have established a tradition. So the Chancellor will answer, and then the last questioner, the last person will ask his question.
Okay. I think that almost all those asking the questions are presidential aspirants. That means that the politics in Pusag is very strong. That is commendable. The missions are doing their best to try and recruit people into the private universities. However, if you have people who have a free provision dangled before them, like in the government institutions, that when they go, they will pay less. Automatically, it becomes very difficult to really recruit a lot. And then in the past, the public universities that were mentoring the private universities gave them space to be able to go around and gather people. Now, the public universities, when they are even mentoring you, just close to your doorstep, they will come and start a teaching or learning center. Once they start a teaching or learning center, and people know that so and so school is there, your marketing or your trying to convince people to come to your institution becomes a challenge. And so it's one of the things the private universities have been arguing and trying to make the mentor institutions understand that you can't mentor us and then you come into our deep freezer and come and take the fish we have brought and cleaned and make sure they are preserved. When you look at how some of the government universities are approaching the thing, it's becoming very aggressive now. As private universities, we are trying our best, and we'll continue to try our best and push our marketing efforts so that we can still mop up and get as many people as possible. Thank you.
You can give... Yeah, you can do it better. You can do it better. Before the last person asks his question, I want to add this, that in Perez University, what the church is doing to help us, and then the Chancellor is doing to help us, is that every academic year, the Chancellor gives a minimum of 100 scholarships to new students to come to Perez University College. And that he deserves to be commended for doing this. It's my prayer that the other chancellors will also imitate same. I ask the last person to ask his question. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Andy Sepa from Agyinasare Radio. Sir, one of the major challenges in Ghana now is the issue of unemployment amongst the youth. Particularly in the universities, especially in public universities, even they find it difficult to recruit their students or students who have graduated from the school. And we hear a number of times whereby private university students graduate and then they end up staying at home. What is the private university doing for their students to ensure that the issue of unemployment doesn't come up? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Asasi Radio. That is why private universities are trying to think outside the box. In the past, we've had unemployed University Graduates Association, and you have all kinds of things going on. Now, because private universities are entrepreneurial, what we are trying to do is to put the entrepreneurial spirit in the students. Because if we could start, even with all the challenges we face, and the competition we have to go through with the public universities and then the foreign universities, if private universities can still do what they are doing, then it means that if you are a student of a private university, by the time you are coming out, already you understand that there is competition in this life, and that you can, when you are innovative, you can succeed. And so private universities are trying, when we meet as leaders of private universities, some of the things we talk about has to do with putting into the heads and the minds of the students we are raising to become creative and innovative, so that when they come out and there are not ready jobs, and the truth of the matter is there are no ready jobs in Ghana. That is how come there is the Unemployed Graduates Association. And so if there is no job, they must be able to create something. They must be able to come up with something that would help them succeed. I want to say to every private university student that, look, God has designed this world in such a way that everybody should be able to fit somewhere and succeed. Everybody is being destined and programmed to succeed. And so you can. Now, let me say that for Perez Chapel, started Perez Chapel 34 years ago with nothing, out of nothing. See, out of nothing, without foreign help, what we've been able to do. If God could do it with us, I want to assure every private university student that if God could do it with us, God can do it with them. If God has used anybody, it's a sure indication that when another person follows the same principles, he'll get the same results. I can see a lot of you succeeding and doing something in this nation that has not been done before. It is your time. It is your season. Don't let anything stop you from rising up to accomplish and to be able to do what you must do to change the tide. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Chancellor. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I've been asked to be gender balanced, so I will ask any of the female aspirants to also speak, so that it doesn't look as if we've given space to the male aspirant to ask questions, and by doing that, they are campaigning for themselves. And I want to inform you that we are also being viewed in the US and the UK, so getting up and going and coming wouldn't help at all. And I still appeal to those outside to just join us. Some have also just arrived. They will join us soon. So I invite Priscilla. She's also competing for General Secretary to also ask her question.
Please, Chancellor, I'm Priscilla Ruth Mensah, vying for the position of the General Secretary. And my question is, what is the government doing to support private universities in terms of gaining more students, like admitting them into schools? What is the government doing?
Thank you very much.
I want to defer that question to the rector, because he deals directly with student intake. So, Rector, Dr. Abuaje, I'll hand over to you to deal with that question.
Thank you very much, Chancellor, for passing this to me. From that high level that you have passed this to me, I respect you so much, and I don't take it lightly. Now, what the government is doing is that the Ministry of Education and GTech is coming out with something they call the CAPS, that is Centralized Admission Processing System. And that system is supposed to be administered such that all new applicants or freshers will apply through one system. And it means that either Legon, UCC, or KNUST will not take students more than they are supposed to take. As such, the student wouldn't even have lecture halls to study. There are no lectures available to study. So, for example, if UCC is to take 200, after 200, the system will close. So nobody will be admitted there again. And then the system will direct those students to private universities the universities that we belong here. So thank you. So this is what, from the government angle through the ministry, is trying to do. But it calls for a robust IT system where it will be put together or synchronized as such that when those places are full and they open the door for us, it will drop into your various academic affairs session, and then we pick it on from there. Thank you very much. Your hand is up. Oh, we have closed. Oh. President, should I take him? Okay, then. Please come as the last person. You mentioned your name, your institution.
Thank you, Chancellor. I'm Gilbert Tete from Heritage University. I want to find out the kind of freedom that SRC body do have in public universities to operate. Why is it that when it comes to private universities, the administration have restricted SRC body from their administration?
Thank you very much. The Chancellor will take the question.
You see, in public universities, everything is funded by the government. And so students can make demands and do whatever they are doing. In private universities, now if you look at the hall you are sitting in and the furniture there, you go to some of the classrooms on campus and you look at the infrastructure there, what it takes to put that together doesn't come from the fees. So if private universities are going to have students come to sit on council and make demands like they do in public universities, there's going to be confusion, because in reality, we are trying to do something, or we are trying to use what is not there to generate or to give people hope. And I think that it's one of the reasons why it makes it difficult to just easily put the SRC students in council meetings to just steer things in a certain direction. When you go into the private university, public universities, you'll discover that most of the SRC leaders end up in politics. Now, if you try to play politics with what is happening in the private institutions, you will destroy the school completely. And so no leader of a private university will want that to happen. Will want to see what they are doing grind to a halt.
Thank you very much, Chancellor. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And even above that, in Perez University College, we have a rep of the alumni on council. That is Bishop Ban. He's a rep of the alumni on council, not even academic board at the highest level. And so this brings us to the end of questions and answers. But before the Chancellor will leave us, I'll invite the current president of Pusag to also show appreciation to the Chancellor for honoring the invitation. Thank you very much. Let's welcome Mr. Oswald Annan.
Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am extremely delighted to stand before this podium to officially express our heartfelt appreciation to the Chancellor of Perez University College. Now, before I give my remarks, Chancellor permits me to make submission here. I think what the gentleman from Heritage University is requesting is not allowing the RSRC to take fully in charge of the council. But what they are requesting is that they do make payment of dues, and therefore the management must ensure that they get access to the payment that they make to the admission in terms of fees. Because many a times, when you go to private universities, our fees are fused with the dues that we pay, and therefore accessing such funds become extremely complicated. And I strongly take an exception to that. So what happens to be a chancellor, I think we should take it critically. For instance, the RSRC can table a request before the management with their own funding. By getting it becomes difficult, and I don't get it. And regarding the support from the government, I think that the idea that the private universities are owned by private individuals, I totally don't subscribe to that. I don't subscribe to that because under no circumstance that the government institutions can admit all the students in Ghana here. And when it happens, we have crisis in this country. In an instance where students want to go to school and they don't get access to universities, I mean, it cannot be possible. So the private universities are there to rather support the government. So if somebody is there to assist you, you have to try your level best to make sure that you also assist the person. But you don't overburden the person in terms of affiliation fee. So I think it's something that you have to take notice of. Because I'm reliably aware of the Education Regulatory Bill 2019, which is before Parliament. As it stands now, that bill has not been passed. And I'm optimistic that when that bill is being passed, private universities will be liberated. So I think it is time the government of this country will take us seriously, because the private universities are rather there to assist you, and therefore you have to rather come on board. Since there is a deliberate policy by government to create one district, one factory, this policy is solely for the private individuals. So if there is something like that, then the government must also take us seriously, because all the staff in the private universities are being employed by these individuals. And when they are there, government cannot employ them, because those that we have, they are already there. So somebody's assisting. We are rather assisting the government. So the government should not take it as if the private universities are there, and therefore they have to rather take political capital out of us. So personally, I think that is the time that the government must call all of us on a joint table so that we see what they have for us. They have to come on board and tell us what they have for us. Because if there is no private universities in Ghana now, there is no way the government will even find itself liberated. And with the second one too, I think, Chancellor, with a humble appeal, it is time the private universities also equip themselves to meet the global trend. Because if somebody wants to come on board to assist you or come to your school, it depends on the things that you are doing. If you don't meet the global trend, it will be very difficult for students to also come to your school. And before I proceed, Chancellor, today we have the debate championship grand finale. And after the championship, with a humble appeal, I want to present the winners to your outfit. Then we come and meet you and see how best we can also assist them. Because it has not been easy. About 10 schools competing. And they did not compete in any school but in your school. So please, probably next week, Chancellor prepare. We'll come to your office with the winners of the debate championship. Chancellor, without wasting my time, on behalf of Pusag, all the private investors in Ghana, the next Senators Alumni, the organizers of this event, we would like to express our profound gratitude and appreciation for honoring our invitation. I know that you were on your way coming, but unfortunately, you couldn't come. So may the good Lord bless you. And I know and I believe that Chancellor will support Pusag at this critical moment. Thank you very much, Chancellor.